As a parent of 2 international school students, watching my kids and their friends grow up has left me worried that our children are living in a bubble, a safe, comfortable bubble that is detached from the rougher aspects of reality. I run an English speech and debate program. In a recent impromptu debate round, arguing whether colleges should charge part of the tuition based on student income, the side supporting the proposal said it gave students from poor families more opportunities to get higher education. The side against it gave a reason I will never forget. They argued students should pay for tuition sooner rather than later because having paid off tuition would give them a peace of mind to focus on learning. When they lost the round, they cried, "Judge bias," because in their mind, they clearly had won. I explained the reality and popped their bubble. Although their own school tuition is over 200,000 RMB per year, it never occurred to them that there might be families who couldn't afford even a fraction of that. They behaved like modern-day Marie Antoinette, the French queen who said, "Let them eat cake," when peasants couldn't afford bread. Unlike our generation in China who grew up in the 80s and had close relatives and friends who were poor, almost everyone our children interact with daily are affluent, like their classmates from school or their parents' friends. They've never had to worry about money or experience hunger or even been told by parents they couldn't buy a toy because it's too expensive. They don't realize almost 98% of people in China make less than 30,000 RMB per year. It'll take 10 years of that income to afford 1 year of their tuition. The Chinese have a proverb, 物以类聚，人以群分, which is similar to the English phrase, birds of the same feather flock together. It is human nature to want to gather with people with similar background and values, but living in a bubble has many harms. Firstly, echo chambers, where sound bounces off walls and reflects back, a metaphor for environment where our ideas are bounced back at us by the groups we form, who share ideas similar to our own. Echo chambers reinforces bias and prejudice, make people narrow-minded, and become an obstacle to intellectual growth and mental flexibility. Secondly, fear of the unknown. Fear, anxiety, and even hostility are attitudes people living in a bubble often display towards those outside of their comfort zone, resulting in a pervasive sense of isolation. Restricting exposure to different cultures, ideas, and experiences can limit understanding of the real world as well as personal growth. Thirdly, economic and professional limitations. Innovations, new opportunities, and emerging industries often ignite where diverse ideas collide. Such breakthroughs are less likely in homogeneous environments. Now, we've explored the prevalence of bubbles and the harms of it. What can we do to avoid that consequence? Read. No, I don't mean Harry Potter, although we do love it, but rather books that challenge existing belief. The most powerful example is Richard Wright, the self-taught Black author. Growing up as a Black boy in the Jim Crow South, Wright was surrounded by systemic racism, poverty, and limited access to education. And yet books became a gateway to intellectual freedom and self-awareness for him. Reading not only gave him the language to analyze and question the racial and social injustice around him, but also broadened his perspective beyond the segregated South. For example, H.L. Mencken's books, which boldly criticized the racism and hypocrisy in American society, challenged Wright's view that all white men were racists who supported segregation. It also helped him envision a life beyond oppression, ultimately inspiring him to move north and pursue his own path as a writer. By directly confronting racism, oppression, and the psychological toll of systemic injustice, Wright became one of the first Black writers to achieve mainstream success. And his groundbreaking works, like Black Boy, laid the foundation for the civil rights movement. Remarkably, Wright's journey began with him forging permission from white men to borrow books from the library and reading in secret. Remarkably, we live in an era where books are more abundant and accessible than ever before. Books have the power to transport us through time, across borders, and into the minds of history's greatest thinkers and storytellers. A vast universe of knowledge and wisdom is right at our fingertips. All we have to do is turn the page. Secondly, travel. No, I don't mean Disneyland, although we do occasionally need them. I mean, really immerse yourself in local life. Mingle with the locals. For example, last summer, my daughter went on a cultural exchange trip to Cuba. There, she experienced firsthand how the Cubans managed to live with an income of $15 a month, coped with frequent power and water shortages, and endure the pressure of hyperinflation. Sounds tough, right? Surprisingly, the Cubans aren't as miserable as you'd expect. The streets are safe and clean, and the people are warm and welcoming. Music fills the air, and the Cubans embrace life through music and dance, more so than many Chinese people. She came to realize people can be physically poor but spiritually rich. There are many different ways of living, and happiness and joy don't always come from money and achievement. It is this culture of joy that explains why many Latin American countries are ranked highly in World Happiness Index. Immersive travel bridges the world by helping us break out of our cultural bubble and experience the different traditions, cultures, and experiences of different people and reflect on our own pride and prejudice. Last but not least, engage with the world. In addition to a bubble of affluence, modern children are often shielded from the harsh realities of the world by parents trying to protect their innocence. This protective approach has been shown to foster apathy, lack of purpose, and helplessness. Feeling powerless to change the real world, they retreat into the virtual world of video games and social media, seeking a sense of artificial control. But it doesn't have to be this way. A few years ago, a high school student here in Shenzhen noticed city cleaners' uniforms are made of non-breathable fabric, making it unbearably uncomfortable during this long, scorching summer. She made it her personal project to design a new, weather-friendly uniform and secured funding and government support to turn it into life. Her project led to her acceptance into Stanford University because that's the kind of future leaders top universities are looking for. The world is full of inequalities and imperfections, but there are countless ways to help if we only open our eyes. By encouraging our kids to engage with the world, we can raise a generation with empathy, resilience, and the ability to make the world a better place. The world is inadvertently fragmented into bubbles, but we must pop them to break free from ignorance and bias and find creative solutions for real-world problems. We can read more books, travel and immerse in different cultures, and actively engage with the world around us. Honestly, when I decided to pop the bubbles for my own children, I was worried about what was going to happen. But by letting them experience the world firsthand through reading, travel, and meaningful engagement, they've opened my eyes to a world I never knew existed. Now I realize the only way to truly grow is to shatter those bubbles and to embrace the full spectrum of life, no matter how daunting it may seem. The world is waiting. Thank you.